That's not... Let me, now, he just brings the point that I'd like to tackle, Mr. Hirschot, that the ADL has done more to increase the popularity and visibility of Louis Farrakhan than anything I've ever seen in my entire life.
I don't know if that's completely a fair comment. I think the little bit of current history and perspective is probably appropriate. For the many months that preceded the publication of the full-page ad in the New York Times, in which we simply wanted to put it out there,
sure,
we had noticed a growing trend in which mainstream organizations, and it really culminated with the so-called covenant, which was later recanted by the Congressional Black Caucus to enter into this holy covenant with the Nation of Islam. We had seen a concerted attempt by Farrakhan and his minions to achieve mainstream, broad-based acceptance without what should have been the quid pro quo of abandoning the baggage of bigotry and racism and anti-Semitism. That was what was particularly setting off the alarm bells for the ADL and for the American Jewish community. I think what we've tried to do, and I think we've achieved it, is put the issue out there, legitimize what properly should be a national debate on issues of bigotry and racism, and I think in many ways re-energized the black-Jewish dialogue. And I would simply, maybe it's a chicken and egg argument, but would simply respond to the rabbi's comment by saying that at some point you have to ask yourself, is sitting and talking and dialoguing worth it if you can't at least have at a minimum threshold level a repudiation across the board of bigotry? And I would argue to you, I would put forward the argument that were there to be an equivalent, an analogous polarizing demagogue such as Farrakhan in the Jewish community, you would see, without our having to be asked or cajoled or enticed, you would see mainstream American Jewish leadership repudiate it, because it would, we wouldn't want our friends, we wouldn't want our dialogue partners to have any doubt whatsoever how we felt.
I just want to just broaden it a little bit. With all of the, with everything that Minister Farrakhan has been, it has been rhetoric. Mm-hmm. When I look at the state of Israel, and where the state of Israel is in relationship with the Palestinian Liberation Organization today, on the verge of a peace accord, there's been much blood. But the blood was overcome by dialogue. And there was no, you have Hamas, who are also Palestinians, but the Israeli government, and I don't know what Yasser Arafat's personal feelings are towards the Jewish people or the state of Israel, but he realizes that for there to be some sense of control, he had to get into dialogue, and so did the Israeli government, so they entered into dialogue. We haven't had blood, and we don't have to have blood here. And I'm saying that dialogue must be the first step. You almost make it seem that if the broader black community had accepted Louis Farrakhan, made this covenant, that he would have changed them. Was it not possible that Chavez and these other people may have had more influence upon him and brought him, and through their working and through the interchange of ideas and meetings with various people, brought Louis Farrakhan to a point of saying, you know, I don't have to create a boogeyman.
It's interesting. I think the Arafat analogy is a very tempting one, and it has been put to us on several occasions. I think the fundamental difference is that Chairman Arafat came to a point, whether in his heart of hearts he believes it, but in terms of understanding for the good of his people that he has represented for so long, since the creation of the State of Israel and before, that he had to come to a point where publicly he was prepared to accept a Jewish presence in the Middle East, and by so doing, the analogy is abandon his wish for the destruction of the State of Israel. We would hope at some point, and I suppose if I ever had my 15 minutes with Minister Farrakhan over a cup of coffee, the question I would ask would be, don't you have enough faith in your message, in your eloquence, in your supreme gift of intellect to put forward the message of self-reliance, of self-empowerment, of pulling the community up, forward, together, collectively, that message doesn't have to be supported by the baggage of bigotry and anti-Semitism and racism. Don't you have enough confidence in the strength of the message itself?
Surely, one of the tragedies of this deal is that white people discovered Louis Farrakhan around 1984. The Nation of Islam has been like taking bad guys and drug dealers and thugs and turning them into guys who wear white shirts and ties and don't smoke, drink, or swear for decades. They've been doing this stuff for decades, quite happily, and continue to do it to this day. And I suppose that the Farrakhan, I think, feels as if he is being beaten up on and singled out for hysterical and irrational reasons. And I must say that it's certainly that is the impression of a lot of black people who I know, which is why I think that you see in the Newsweek polls that he enjoys quite a bit of support, much more so than before he was attacked by ADL. That the attacks are perceived as being hysterical and way out of proportion to anything remotely.
There's a serious problem out there, and it's probably most disturbingly manifested on college campuses around the country. When you have a gathering at Howard University, as we saw a month ago, of Farrakhan's deputies, who now are probably commanding higher speaking fees and are certainly in demand on many campuses, and you literally had a chanting reminiscent of the days of Nazi Germany, who's responsible for AIDS, who's responsible for death in the black community, and the responsive cheering, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. This sends a chill down the spine of certainly the American Jewish community and hopefully all people of conscience. And these are young minds, people who are at that last way station before they enter into society, hopefully to lead productive, good, contributing lives toward our society.
Would you hold the point for a second? We have to take a break. We'll be back for a final segment with our guest discussing the state of black-Jewish relations after these messages. But no, that is certainly a disturbing. But I guess